Hello friends and welcome back to MSFS Flight Plans. I'm Nick and I'm taking a little bit of a break from all of my study for my PPL. If you've been following along with that last video, I made the big announcement that I finally decided to start the studying procedures for getting my private pilot's license. And so just to take a little quick flight, as I mentioned, we'll try to upload as many of these as I can. I'm just not going to be able to do the really in-depth city tours and stuff until I at least complete the studying for this written exam. As we do these, I will tell you about what that's like, and then, of course, you'll see a lot more about what that's like on the additional side-by-side channel that we'll be running from the flight school. We're going to set up a new YouTube channel with those guys. It's going to be really cool, so you'll get to see what it's really like with my CFI, with the flight school owner. We'll try to get some flight footage in there from A to Z, start to finish. I'm going to tell you guys everything that I'm going through, just in case you're considering doing the same thing, at least in the United States, what that would look like. Or maybe if you've already got your PPL, you want to take a little trip down memory lane, you can vicariously relive that through me. And we're going to be in Idaho today, and we're flying the Cub because the flight school owner has one that looks identical to this. Maybe the wheels aren't quite that big, but everything else is just spot on. And I don't know why you can't hear it from the outside. Last time you could hear it from the outside, but not on the inside. Now we can hear it on the inside, so I guess I'd prefer that than not being able to hear it from the outside, and I don't have to yell. So let's get in real quick. I was having a little trouble starting this up, and this is the J-3 from Classic Aircraft Simulations, not the other one. I much prefer this one to the other one. It's really cool. It shakes and vibrates and all the things that you want a Cub to do. So let's hop in real quick, then I'll show you the map, and then we'll get going, get in the air. I'll tell you about everything that's going on out here. There we go. So you can hear it on the inside, which is great. And of course, I am sitting in the back. Let's look at a little nav map real quick. So here's Idaho, and we're not far from the Snake River, which I'm going to mention. If you want to take a really nice trip, come over here to Lewiston. We're over here at Orofino, and just cruise down the Snake River, which is the border between Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So here we are up here, and the reason why I selected this spot is you guys know how much I like dams, for one thing. Well, there's an in-sim POI that I didn't notice until I zoomed way in for this dam right here. It's huge, and it looks fantastic, so I'll tell you all about that. And of course, we're in Idaho, so we're going to have all these canyons and valleys and stuff to see. This is not photogrammetry out here, which is perfectly fine, so we're just going to come up from the airport real quick. This will be a relatively quick trip. This is a slow plane. Just come out here a little bit, come back around, because I want to show you the town of Orofino. There's a little bit of historical significance to that, and modern-day significance. And then come over here to this little area at the confluence of these two rivers. This is called the North Fork of the Clearwater River. This is the Clearwater they're going to be flying past. Then we'll cruise over the dam, up over the big reservoir, and then come on down to this grass strip I found out here. By the way, this is kind of what you might think that this is like a weird map seam or something here. It's not. I looked at all the Google Maps. They've just done some maybe timber harvesting or something. And it really looks like that. There's these lines there, I guess, on the property boundaries from where they were cutting the trees down. So that is not... That might be a map artifact. That looks a little bit weird, but all the rest of this stuff really looks like that on all the maps when we get up there. There will be no snow on this one. This is just the default map. But that's really what it looks like, which is kind of interesting because it definitely looks like merged satellite images. But that's the real deal, minus the snow. That's what we're going to see out there. So let's bring that back over here. Get up in the air. And I'm going to try something. I mentioned that last... Well, let's just start flying. I got a lot of stuff to tell you guys, and we'll have a few minutes while we're over the reservoir. I'll tell you all the exciting things that are going on. By the way, if you don't have this plane, highly encourage you to get it. Really cool. Let's just check our barometer real quick. I think everything's good. Yep, it is. All right, so let's do it. Really cool plane. As far as tail draggers go, relatively easy to get off the ground and get back down on the ground. Let's bring that tail up. Once it's up, it's good to go. And if you have the Palestina, which is what we flew out over Space Camp, that's a knockoff of the Cub. It flies very similar. Well, that's a horrible takeoff. That's what I get for trying to rearrange my notes while I'm flying around. But we're up. That's the big deal. So this is Orofino Airport that we're departing from, sitting right along a bend in the Clearwater River, which is right down there to our right. And the town of Orofino is just east of here, so we're going to come down here a little bit, circle back around, and get a good look at it, which will give me a little bit of time to tell you about it. But first, a little bit about the Clearwater River here. It's not real big at just under 75 miles in length. And again, if you follow this west for about 30 miles, that's where you will see Lewiston. And the Snake River will run off to the south. So if you want to see some really cool bush strips, and I just got a bush strip pack with like 9 bush strips along the Snake River. Not too far from Lewiston, so we might take a trip out there. Some of them are pretty cool and pretty tough. I might fly that one also in the Cub with my CFI live streaming with me, so he can give us some pointers about landing this thing and taking off in it, which obviously I need a lot of help with. But good old Lewis and Clark came down this river in October of 1805 on their big hike across the country, reaching the Pacific Ocean from here about 6 weeks after working their way down the Clearwater in 5 dugout canoes. And I'll show you where they built and launched those in a few minutes. It's just up ahead. But first we're going to circle back around here. This is not the live weather, and the time of day is about high noon here. So you can see some trees printed on the ground and stuff. Overall, once you get some altitude, it's not too bad. Let's just come on back around here, make sure we're not going to hit any mountains before I glance over at my notes again. I think we're going to be just fine. Thankfully, this thing moves at a snail's pace. Alright. There we go. Okay, we're heading in a good direction here. Okay, getting back to the town of Orofino. There's our runway right there in front of us. The name means fine gold in Spanish. And that title is a relic from the 1860s gold rush that happened out in this area. And it's a transplant from the name of an old mining camp that was about 20 miles to the east. So the original mining camp was called Orofino. It was just south of a town called Pierre, I think. It's east of here. But perhaps the most significant claim of Orofino today is that it is the largest town in the Nez Perce Reservation, which occupies roughly 1,200 square miles around this area. And right now we're in the far northeastern corner of the res. But when that was originally established in 1855 after the Treaty of Walla Walla, which is a lot of fun to say, the Indians had a whopping 7.5 million acres of some of the most beautiful landscape on Earth to call home. It went from here all the way out into parts of Washington and Oregon. And that was all fine and good until they found the gold out here. And after that, they reduced this reservation to its current footprint just 8 years later in 1863. So that was probably fun while it lasted. Well, they still have some pretty nice views out here. So let's see, we'll just take the river this way a little bit, which would be flowing upstream. Right now we're flying upstream, and come around the side of this hill so you can take a little peek at the town, which isn't real big. Nez Perce, by the way, if you're curious, is a French term that means pierced nose. I think I mentioned that in one of our other flights, though I don't remember which one it was. Which must have been a distinguishing feature of the tribe when the French fur trappers first rolled through here back in the day. But today, most of the population of the reservation is white, about 90% in fact, so virtually all of it. One exception being this little town, which is roughly 80% indigenous descendants still. Oh, I didn't notice those little towers we have up there on that hill before. But other than this amazing dam that we're about to see, the other major landmark out here is a big state prison, which is directly across from the high school. I'll show that to you in just a second when it comes into view. One of the things I'm working on, because I know I'll have to be doing it in real life, is keeping my stick back a little bit, or yoke if I'm playing with a control wheel, so that I don't sink on these turns. Not something I thought about a lot before. Maybe I was just naturally doing it because I wasn't falling out of the sky. Alright, so right over here is the high school, and then here's where the state prison is, right next to it, which I think used to be a school. And then it was a mental facility for a while, but this is the high school right over here. You'll see all their athletic fields down in this area. But, gosh, I mean, you really can't go wrong flying anywhere in Idaho. Until you get out a little bit further to the east, it gets a little bit flat. There it is. Footprint's about right. So, it looks like a prison. Of course, the buildings don't look right because they're not photogrammetry. There's the high school. You can see their baseball diamond there. Alright, so up ahead, I'm going to show you where a place that's called Canoe Camp. I think Canoe Camp State Park. That's where old Louie and Clark dug out their canoes. And I don't know if they took them all the way to the Pacific, but they made 5 of them and then put them in the water right up here. So on the way down there, I've got another big announcement. I finally broke down and got myself a VR headset. If you're curious about that, I've got a 3090 card, by the way, so really not ideal for VR. But I got the Quest 3 after literally over a year of debating and researching and just not wanting to do it. I don't know why. Mainly because I can't record for our flights that we load up to the channel in VR because they're all jittery and shaky. So I was afraid I'd get in there and never come back out. And I gotta tell you, it's awfully tempting to stay in VR. What I did not think about, although I've used VR stuff before, but I completely failed to consider, is that it's not just a 360-degree view of everything. I mean, there's no frames on anything, obviously, in VR. But I forgot that everything in there is three-dimensional. The gauges, the controls, everything, which was like, wow, that's really cool. But my CFI recommended I go ahead and just do it because he said it'll really help with your sight picture and looking about turning on final and things like that. And I've been told all along that landing helicopters was infinitely easier in VR, and I was like, how could it possibly be that much easier? But everybody who ever said that was exactly right. I didn't have any motion sickness in the planes, none whatsoever, but I hopped in the R-22 and was a little bit queasy for a few minutes, then I kind of got used to it. But something about being able to see the ground approaching in 3D versus 2D makes all the difference in the world with those helicopters. So yeah, that was a huge difference, but since we'll still be uploading all of our flights in 2D, you'll probably still see me floundering around with my helicopter landings. Right down here, this is a big fish hatchery on both sides of the river. So the dam's going to be up here. This is the North Fork right here. This is a fish hatchery, and this is too. And then right up here is Canoe Park, where Lewis and Clark, presumably, were digging them out and hopping in and heading down this way towards the Pacific. And man, they hatch a lot of fish there. I'll tell you about that in just a second. So let me just keep an eye out the window for a second and not on my notes while I make this turn. And I'll tell you about the dam. I can't recall what the population of the town was. It wasn't a lot. I'm pretty sure it was under 20,000. But if you look at the footprint of the reservation out here, it stretches it's all within Idaho now, I'm pretty sure. But it goes a pretty good distance, almost to the borders of Washington and Oregon, but I think it stretched originally, back in 1855, well into those states. And here comes the dam, slowly coming into view. And if you notice, the screen looks a little bit smoother than usual. Now we can select that DLSS frame generation, which is working real nice. Look at that baby. What an absolute beaut. Let's pick up a little altitude because we're landing up on top of that hill over there. So this is called the Dworshak. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I couldn't find a single video of anyone saying the name of it. And this is currently the third tallest in the United States, this dam is, at a height of 717 feet. And it is the tallest straight-axis dam in the Western Hemisphere. And I thought I probably knew what that meant, but I had to look it up, and my assumption about that was correct. A straight-axis dam, you notice this looks a little bit different than most huge dams, especially if they're concrete. Earthwork dams are usually flat like that. But that's what it means. Most of the concrete dams are concave, leaning into the reservoir behind them. This one is straight, so the only thing holding all that water back is the sheer mass of that thing, which is a lot. But they completed this in 1973 and named it after Senator Henry Dworshak of Idaho, who, though dead when it was opened, I think he'd been dead for about 11 years, played a pretty big role in getting it approved for construction. And this is a hydroelectric dam, but not a real potent one. It's got a power capacity of around 460 megawatts, perhaps precisely 460 megawatts, which is less than a quarter of what the Hoover Dam can bang out. But I read that they're thinking about opening up 3 or 4 more generators that'll bring it up to over 1,000, which would make it about half the power of the Hoover. That thing looks great, doesn't it? Look at that. I love a good dam. Uh-oh, look at that, right below the rim there. Looks like they got a little crack forming in it. Better get on there and put a little spackle on that thing. I love this. Look at these little boats down here. And I think this is part of the upgrade of that dam, because I don't have any shipping traffic turned on right now. Beautiful. But they didn't build this just for electricity. They were having some pretty serious flooding issues out here, which this beast completely resolved. And it sounds like they were also looking for a little bit of reservoir storage. But one of the big reasons that people did not want the dam out here was because it would block the migration of steelhead trout, which was reported to be one of the largest populations of those guys in the world. But to get around that problem, which was definitely a problem, they built those hatcheries back there, which dump around 3.5 million juvenile trout in the river every single year, which is a lot. They said they have around 6,000 adults in the hatchery, so that's a lot of eggs. I bet the males are enjoying that. And right now we're flying over the Dworshak Reservoir, which stretches 53 miles to the northeast from here, and it gets pretty skinny as we go around that bend there. And has around 175 miles of gorgeous shoreline. Okay, so now let me tell you what I'm up to. That's all there is to see out here. But I want to tell you what's going on with the flight training, which I'm not doing any flight training at this point. In the United States, for all of you from across the pond or anywhere else in the world, we have to pass an FAA written exam. Really, before you do anything, I guess you could start flying before passing it. But one of our members told me, just go ahead and get that out of the way so you don't have to think about it while you're trying to focus on all the stuff that you need to do for your flight. And you have to get 40 hours of flight training, some solo time, some cross-country time, and then you do the check ride, where they have a pilot examiner come in and do an oral exam, and then you have to perform a bunch of maneuvers during the check ride. And that's where I'm starting to get a little bit nervous, because as I mentioned in that last video, I've got a little bit less than 4,000 total hours of simming in just the last 3 years. And I developed a lot of habits that you would just learn by not knowing what you're doing and flying planes around that make it seem like you're flying just fine, but because you can't feel the physics of what's going on with the plane, a lot of things you just don't know that you don't know. And one of those things that I realized I did not know and I've always been doing wrong, I would take a turn and keep rudder. Like if I was taking a left turn, I would bank and keep left rudder in for the duration of the turn. All you guys that are regular pilots are like, yeah, no duh, you don't do that. What I now know is that you only put the rudder in while you are using your ailerons. It's just used to offset adverse yaw, which is created when there's a little bit more drag between one wing and the other. So you do that to prevent a slip or a skid as you're doing that. So that's really hard for me to do that. And remember to just put a little bit of rudder in when I'm moving the stick, in this case around, instead of keeping it in. I'm going to have to break that habit. And I want to try something new with this tail dragger. And I'm sure I'm going to be doing a lot of tail dragger flying. I'll probably get my tail wheel endorsement with a flight school, because why the heck not after I get my PPL, if he's got a Cub there to do it in. But I read that book that I mentioned in that last video called Stick and Rudder, which I cannot recommend enough. It is so good. And right now, if you have Audible, it's free. I got it for free, and I also ordered the hardcover because it was so good. It was written in the 1940s when most planes were still tail draggers, although he does mention tricycle-style gear, so I guess they were starting to pop up back then. But there's a whole section about landing tail draggers, and he said when you're coming in, if you're going to make a 2-point landing, or what they call a wheel landing instead of a 3-point, as you're coming down, I was always doing 3-point landings. I tried a few 2-points and just failed miserably. I would hop all over the place. He said when you get down, just let the ground come up to you, fly in relatively flat, relatively level. Let's see, what's this airport elevation? 3,300, all right, so I need to come up a bit more, quite a bit more. He said, but when you get down there and when the wheels touch, put the stick forward. And he said it's hard to break the tendency to pull back because most people are trying to do 3-wheel landings, which is what you would do if you need to do a short field because it'll stop you quicker. You're already coming in with a really high angle of attack. But he said if you have a little bit more space, then come in and once those wheels hit, push the stick forward. He said you're not going to want to do that because you're not used to pushing the stick forward because you think you're going to smash into the ground. But he said you won't because of the ground effect. The nose will not hit the ground. Let me give it full throttle so I can power up this hill here. This baby's almost going at just max speed right now. So we're going to try that this time and see how it works out. I need to get high enough to see where this is. It's really, really hard to spot this runway, so I'll tell you guys how to spot it once we get up here. Let me come over this way just a little bit more. I don't want to be right on top of it once we come around. Put a little bit of rudder in while I'm moving that stick. So we'll see how this works out. A couple more things that have been shocking for me. I have a lot more respect for anybody who even completes the FAA exam now. Not that I didn't respect pilots before, but that is a tremendous amount of relatively unrelated information. And I've taken some pretty big exams in my time. I'm in the financial business, and I've got some pretty big-time certificates and designations in, like, seems like half the world in the United States. If you've ever been in the financial business, probably got your Series 7. That was a pretty big test. To become a certified financial planner, which I did in my early 20s, that was extremely difficult, way harder than the Series 7. But what's very different about studying for this versus that is that if you don't pay attention to some of the stuff you're just planning on forgetting with your CFP designation or your Series 7, not that big of a deal. If you forget some of the stuff with this, it could kill you. So that's been a much bigger consideration and actually makes it a lot more fun and interesting because you pay a lot more attention to things that are really, really important because most of it's really, really important. Looking at sectional charts has been just absolutely blowing my mind. I never really did that. You know how we make most of our flight plans here in a little nav map? I'd used airways and stuff like that when I was flying airliners and SIDS and stars and all that, but trying to decipher sectionals, METAR, and TAF reports, which are not easy to do, takes a lot. Never mind all the regulations, all the requirements for different airspaces. It is a lot. Okay, so this runway starts on the right side of that little road coming away from us, and then it's going to cross it, and the road's going to bend off to the right. So the runway's going to cross the road, so I'm going to try to come in pretty slow here, just keep her nice and level, and then we'll put that nose down, and when we're done, I'll just show you real quick, again, where Lewiston and the Snake River is, since we already looked at everything else, and then we'll wrap her up. So in case anyone got the wrong idea, and I think some people did based on the comments from that last video, I do still plan on continuing what I'm doing on this channel even after I get my PPL, which will probably be a lot more cool, a lot more interesting, and definitely a lot more accurate as far as aviation goes. They're just going to be more flights like this, relatively short, Probably a little bit more spaced out than usual because I just don't have the time to do the kind of research I was doing before, but I'll get right back into that once we're done because I love it so much. I don't know what else I would do with my time, but I would like to probably go ahead and get my instrument rating after this. Maybe multi-engine, why not? And definitely tail dragger because I do plan on flying this thing around, and he'll let you rent it out. All right, let me concentrate on this for just a second. Let's slow down some. I got a lot of runway here. It's almost 3,000 feet long. Okay, keep her in nice and level, and then once those wheels hit, I'm going to push the nose down. And cut the throttle. Nose down. Look at that. So I got the stick forward. I mean, it's not planted in the windscreen there, but it's down. So we'll let it come back, and then I'll give some back pressure. Sure enough, it works. If I can do that in the business liner, we know we've made some big strides. That's got to be the hardest plane in the entire sim to land. I'm just going to let this roll to a stop. I'm not going to give any brakes. All right, guys. Well, we got a little free flight lesson there. So next time you're in the tail dragger and bouncing all over the place, as soon as those wheels hit, put the nose down a little bit. I think that's going to do the trick. All right, so now I'm going to hop in the Cub after this because I bounced that thing all over the place. See if I can do it in that one. Very cool. And stopped. Didn't use the brakes at all. Fantastic. So let's just shut the fuel off and take a little look at little navmap real quick. All right, it won't even shut off. That's fine. We'll just leave it on. I don't think this one's fully geared up for 2024 yet, but it's so fun to fly. Of course I'm going to fly it here. All right, take that off there. We didn't stay our course very well, did we? But that's fine, because I was too busy talking about stuff. So again, if you want to take a great flight, just leave from Lewiston here. Lewiston here. And then head south down the Snake River. Look how long this thing is. It goes forever, but all of it is through some just gorgeous canyon lands. Man, how far does this thing go? Look at that. Holy moly, is this still the Snake River? It is. Wow. Oh, there we go. There we go. Little backfire there. That's perfect. Look at that. That thing is long. Okay, so maybe we'll take that little bush strip pack flight. I think I got that from Orbix. It's okay. It's just okay. There's some, you know, a couple little things to look at on the ground, a little bit of eye candy. They're pretty close to each other, so we could definitely do it in a relatively quick bush plane. I think there was 9 of them again, so maybe we'll check that out. And I won't have to research that a lot either. But that's what it looks like, guys. Thanks for coming along. Stay tuned for more cool stuff, and I will definitely keep you guys posted as soon as we have gotten the recording gear. We got to get some lights. We got the cameras for the new channel that we're going to post that will have all of the live stuff that we'll be talking about, what we're going to do in the class, in the flight training, all that stuff. I will let you know when that's coming, so you will not miss it. Of course, I'll link to all those videos from this channel so you can stay abreast of all that. And I hope you guys have just as much fun as I'm going to as I work through all that. Learned a lot about this trip. Never been out here. Never would have checked it out if it wasn't for this dam. So once again, we got a damn good view of a good dam. Can't wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.